Hey guys, welcome to the lab. Leon here. I'm really glad you guys can make it for this really special episode of Leon in the Lab. We had a really cool guest join us for this week's episode, Gottsch of the Professional Bull Riders and CEO of the Austin Gamblers, joined us to make some really cool stuff and to tell his story. He has a really storied past with baseball. He played in the College World Series back in the 90s. He also had a really strong involvement with the Round Rock Express and the Corpus Christi Hooks of minor league baseball. And he kind of spent time to tell his story and where he sees his Austin Gamblers going in the upcoming PBR Teams series season coming up very soon. And special guest JJ. Hope you guys enjoy it. And shout out to our sponsor for this episode, Pullman Sports Colorado. And I hope you guys enjoy this episode. Let me know how it goes. Hey guys, welcome to the lab. We have JJ Gottsch in the lab today. Very excited to have you. Welcome to the lab, JJ. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Leon. Fired up to be here, man. This should be fun.
Perfect. So for those who don't know, JJ has a very storied history in sports and sports license product and sports in general. I guess let's kind of start from the beginning. 1991, you played in the College World Series for Creighton. Tell me about some of your most memorable moments and your experience from playing there in the College World Series.
Yeah, I've been real fortunate throughout my life. I'm an Omaha, Nebraska kid. I grew up in Omaha. I grew up going to the College World Series every year. I pretty much grew up in two places. I grew up in the parking lot of Rosenblatt Stadium, which is where the CWS used to be held, and also Memorial Stadium, where the home of the Nebraska Cornhuskers. But yeah, I grew up playing baseball. Always had a dream of playing in the College World Series and hopefully playing professionally. I was extremely fortunate after high school. I went to Creighton University on a baseball scholarship there. And my freshman year, we had an amazing team, a really talented group of people, led the nation in hitting that year, and were able to advance to the World Series. And it was the first time not only Creighton had been to the World Series, but any team from Nebraska to represent the state in the College World Series. So a lot of excitement for the hometown team being there, and the only team from the state. We had probably a half dozen kids from the Omaha area. But it was an amazing feeling to be able to go down on the field, to take infield, to be introduced and look up in the stands and not only see the seats of where I always grew up watching the games, but all the people that I grew up with that were there watching us. And so, again, it was an amazing experience. Would have loved to have gone back. We made it to the regionals a couple more times, once with Creighton and once with TCU. But it was an amazing experience. It's an amazing event. Just wrapped up in Omaha, one of the best College World Series of all time, with LSU winning, and which is always great for the city of Omaha because LSU is a huge draw. But no, it was a really great moment for me in my life, and really kind of steered me in the direction of baseball. Ultimately, getting the opportunity to have a very brief career in minor league baseball as a player, but then following that, getting to work on the business side of professional baseball and minor league and major league baseball for almost 24 years until I made the switch last year.
That's awesome. I don't think people really realize how big college baseball is. I mean, the game just wrapped up this week. Game 3 actually was the second highest baseball audience, only trailing U.S. Japan for WBC. So it's a big thing. So that was really cool that you got to experience that. Side question: was there any cool merch or equipment that you kept, or are you collecting yourself?
It's so I've still got the jersey from that year, which you're a Toronto guy, right? Is that correct? So
yes, sir.
The interesting story about Creighton. Back then, college baseball was not a revenue generating sport that it is today. There weren't a lot of huge stadiums. There definitely weren't NIL deals. There weren't a lot of gear deals. You didn't see Jumpman logo on anybody's uniforms. I mean, it was hodgepodge. Most teams didn't. Some teams had shoe deals. Some teams had bat deals. Some teams might have had some glove deals. But a lot of it was hodgepodge. And we didn't have everybody wearing the same shoe until basically, I think, after regionals. And we showed up to practice one day, and there was a rep from some shoe company that pulled in the parking lot, opened up its trunk, and had shoes for everybody. And then the same thing with bats. So that was, it just wasn't a big thing then. But the real interesting thing for you and for a lot of people is, and I don't know who was ultimately responsible for us, but our uniforms that year uh, were literally not a knockoff, but it was the exact Toronto Blue Jay logo
Yeah.
with the Canadian maple leaf. And we're in Omaha, Nebraska, but we had these navy blue softball type uniforms, not no button down, just pull over, and we had the Toronto Blue Jay logo, maple leaf and all, with Creighton over the top. And I don't know that anybody ever said anything. And it wasn't until, probably because we were never on TV back then, and it wasn't until we were on ESPN that year that probably somebody even said anything. But I don't think anything ever happened. And I think we continued to wear those uniforms for a couple more years. And what was really interesting is about half a dozen years ago, I saw that there was a lawsuit that uh, the Toronto Blue Jays were suing Creighton for Creighton's new logo,
Yeah.
which doesn't really look anything like Toronto's logo, but yet they didn't say anything when we used their actual logo in the past. But it's amazing to see what's happened with the merch business and with gear from when I played in the early '90s to what kids have today and what's available to not just the people playing the games, but the people watching the games. It's awesome, and I think it's a great time. Obviously, with your focus on hats and other gear, me being involved in the professional side of baseball and some of our teams, and we had some really creative guys do some really cool things, and so it's just a great time right now. Much more options than the early '90s, I can tell you that.
Oh yeah, I think the internet definitely kind of opened up the floodgates and allowed anyone from anywhere just to be able to get from whichever team they follow. But yeah, let's transition a little bit about your work in the professional baseball. So you led two minor league teams, both Houston Astros affiliates. So first the Corpus Christi Hooks, and then later on to the Round Rock Express. Both times you had spent at the inaugural process for both teams. Can you tell us about how you got started with that?
Yeah, exactly. So I was when I went to TCU, I actually was kind of courted there by Reed Ryan, who was Nolan Ryan's oldest son, and so I had the opportunity to play with him there our senior years at TCU. Had a fantastic season. I think we were 1 or 2 games away from going to Omaha, and just maintained a great friendship. Like I said, I had a brief minor league career. Actually went back to TCU and coached a couple years. Reed's younger brother Reese came up, and I had the opportunity to coach him. And then we ultimately, the three of us, lived together and started a great friendship. And then when Reed's playing career got over, he knew that he wanted to stay involved in the sport somehow. And so he talked with his dad and a couple of their partners about potentially buying a minor league team, looked at different markets around the country to find out really where were there any holes and where could you bring a team. Ironically enough, there was a spot in Texas, in Austin, the Austin market, that was the second largest market in the country at that time after Sacramento that didn't have a professional sports team. So really started working that line. There was a team, the Jackson Generals, that were the Astros AA affiliate at that time. It was able to work out a deal with them to purchase them, kept them in Jackson for 98 and 99. We ultimately so I moved here in 98 to the Austin area with Reed, went up to Round Rock, started putting the work in to get it. We had to have an election to get the stadium passed. Got that passed in the fall of '98. Started building the stadium in '99. Announced the team name in '99. And really started building the franchise from the ground up, literally and figuratively. Everything, not only from the construction side, but tickets and merchandise and everything else. And then launched the Express in 2000. And I remained with the club for the first 4 full years of playing, so 5 years total. And then the Ryans asked me and my wife to go to Corpus Christi and do the same thing. So we went down there in '03, had an election to get a stadium built there, got that passed, started construction in '04, and then launched the Corpus Christi Hooks in 2005 at Whataburger Field. So really two really unique opportunities to be on the ground floor of two franchises and building them, not only the stadiums, but the entire franchise and the brand from the ground up. And two different experiences even though we were in the same state working for the same ownership group, there were two different markets. And so we had two kind of different fan bases that we were working with. And we ended up having two kind of different brands, one being the Express, symbolic of not only Nolan's name, but we were close to a railroad track there, and really the iconic stature and nature of the Express and what that means to Texans and Nolan Ryan. But then we went a completely different route in Corpus Christi with the hooks. Again, the double meaning of the hooks, one being the curveball, but then two being fishing hooks in Corpus Christi's fishing community down there. But we had a lot more flexibility and a lot more room to do some really cool and unique things with the hooks logo as opposed to the Express logo, because it wasn't tied directly to Nolan. Because we were really respectful of the Express name. And while minor leagues typically are goofy and fun, and you can do a lot of crazy things with them, back then there weren't a lot of the alternate uniforms. There weren't a lot of the alternate caps and secondary teams and things of that nature. So we really had to kind of play it close to the vest and didn't do as much with the Express as we were able to do with the hooks. Mm-hmm. But then obviously with alternate uniforms, theme nights, and a lot of those different things that came up in the mid to really late 2000s, and what we've had in the last 10 years, gave our folks a lot of flexibility to do some really cool theme nights and some really cool branded hats and merchandise. So it's been an interesting experience from, again, launching and where minor league baseball, and specifically one of our organizations, were in the early 2000s to where the game is today. And again, a lot more options and a lot more cool things that you can do with logos and all the things that you do, and creating different looks and different colors and different themes. And so really got to see a lot of the evolution of not only the sport, but the merchandising and designing and graphics around it.
Cool. And how much direct relation did he have to, like, I know you mentioned like staying with the aesthetic for him and kind of keeping things more team color and stuff like that, but like was there ever a time when he ever looked at anything and was like, oh, that's just too crazy? Or
no, he is one, he's a great man. He and the family were just incredible to work for. But he's one of those successful businessmen, and that what he does is that he goes out and he, whatever business it is, if it's his beef business, his cattle business, his ranching, banking business, whatever it is, and even with baseball, what he does, what good leaders do, is you go out and you find the best people and you support them and you let them do their job. And so the boys, Reed and Reese, were kind of our CEO and CFO for both organizations. And they did the same thing. So really more the day-to-day was working primarily with them. I had a good pulse on kind of really what probably we could get away with and what we couldn't get away with and what they'd be comfortable with. But really, it was really running things more through Reed and Reese and knowing and getting kind of their approval on things. But we also kind of had an idea, and it was one of those rules that if you had to ask the question, you probably knew what the answer was. But no one really didn't get involved in the day-to-day, with the looks and the branding and really anything like that. He really left it up to the folks that he hired to do that. Really, the only involvement that he got in that he would ever say anything is if he came to the game and somebody started doing the wave. He would just tell our announcer to see if he can't not have that get started again. He's not a big fan of the wave.
Yeah, I think most hardcore purists aren't, especially if you're losing. Like it's not a good time to be celebrating. But I put together a quick mock-up that I don't. Maybe he would like it, maybe he wouldn't. But this would be kind of like an homage to Mr. Nolan himself. So we got off-white color, and then the denim just to accent that. And then we use some Austin Gamblers logo insignia. But we can get more into that a little bit later. But we got the Texas side hit because he's always repping Texas. But it'd be cool to figure out if this would be something that he would be into or not. But what do you think about this?
You checked a lot of boxes right there. I mean, because again, he's simple, right? He's not flashy. I think with the off-white, I think with the denim, he's definitely a jean guy. And then, his moniker outside of the Express is Big Tex. And so to have that state of Texas and people just, they widely respect him, revere the state of Texas. So I think having that in there, a little shout out to the Gamblers and kind of throwing that in there, and then the state of Texas G on the back. Love that as well.
Awesome. All right. So eventually you had transitioned from your role in the world of professional baseball, and you became the CEO of the Austin Gamblers. For people who aren't familiar with the PBR and the professional bull riding, can you tell us about like what kind of sparked your move from baseball to a completely different sport?
Yeah, so it was interesting. It wasn't really one thing, and it was probably timing more so than anything. But going into last year, I've been with the Lions for going on 24 years. Again, launching the two different minor league baseball franchises. We had a sports hospitality company that we had launched. We had a sports turf construction company. We had Nolan's Charitable Foundation. So really had the opportunity to help work in all five of those divisions with some great people, and had was on 24 years. And honestly, my wife and I in January 22 kind of sat down, looked at kind of where we were. I just turned 50, and we looked and said, listen, if we're able to stay on here for another 10 years, that gets me to 60 years old. It's 34 years working for the Ryans and Nolan Ryan. What a great year to retire when I'm 60 and 34. Always kind of the iconic number with him. And so we literally had that conversation in early January. And then in late January, early February, started getting some calls and indications of a professional bull riding team that was coming to Austin. And some headhunters had started calling some different folks. I was actually, I'm the chairman of the Austin Sports Commission. So we had kind of found out through that, and I called the headhunter and said, hey, if you need some help, we'd love to help you because we want to try to get more professional teams to move to Austin. And so if we can support you, we'd love to do that. I just asked him, hey, quit trying to cherry pick the guys that work for the baseball team. And so he was appreciative and said thanks. And then his boss called a couple of days later and said, thanks for helping us out. But, would you be interested? And I was like, man, I work for Nolan Ryan. I'm in a great spot right now. I don't know that,
Yeah.
Jumping over to a professional bull riding team is really the right move for me. And so he said, well, let me tell you a little bit more about it. And so we had a couple of different conversations and talked about the different opportunity that the PBR, which had been around, now we're in our 30th year, was transitioning from not just an individual season, but for half the year going to this new team series with 8 different markets around the country, launching this year. Great group of owners, including ours, Egon and Abby Durbin. And we were going to have the opportunity to have our home event at the brand new Moody Center, which just opened up last year and ultimately became Polestar's venue of the year. To be able to utilize the 24 years of working in sports and entertainment, not only all the good things that have happened, but the bad things, and utilizing those lessons in life and in business. There's not many times when you're 50 years old and you get a chance to start something new again. And so for me, knowing what it was like to launch a franchise, to launch a team, to launch a brand, to be able to do that again when I was 50, utilize all the lessons that we had learned the first 2 or 3 times that we had did it, to be able to do it in my home market and not have to move my family, to be able to do it at the Moody Center for a great ownership group. And then ultimately, not only launch a new team, but a new league. Because when we launched those baseball teams, not only in the Round Rock Express, but the Corpus Christi Hooks, although the teams and the franchises were brand new, the Texas League had been around since, I think, 1888. So there was already a playbook already established that we just kind of had to plug and play for the most part. But this was an opportunity with the bull riding and PBR team series to, again, be on the ground floor of launching a brand new league. And so I think if it had just been one of those things, I don't know that I'd have made the leap, but it was all those things collectively. And additionally, the support from the Ryan family saying, hey, this is a great opportunity for you. You need to go try it, which I was greatly appreciative of and their support. But yeah, it was a lot of different things, and the timing was great. And so we jumped over, and it's been an amazing ride, pun intended, with this on my shoulder. These last 14 months, we had our first inaugural season last year. The Gamblers finished. We won the regular season championship. Unfortunately, stubbed our toe at the team series, but it's been an amazing ride, and it's been interesting because as successful as it was, there's still a lot of education that we need to do, a lot of awareness, because some folks don't know what the PBR is. They don't know what professional bull riders are. They don't know what the difference is maybe between that and PRCA, which is the Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association. And maybe if they do know what the PBR is, they don't know what the PBR team series is. So there's a lot of education to do, but I think we did a lot of things well last year. There's a lot of things we still need to work on and get better at. But I think we, not only the Gamblers, but the team series and our other teams in the league, did a really good job in that inaugural season.
Yeah, I had to do some show prep, so admittedly, so I knew not much about bull riding. So I watched the trailer, and I'm like, hey, this is kind of cool. And then I ended up binging all of season one of the ride. So anyone who has time to check it out, please check it out on Amazon Prime. It covers the inaugural season, the first draft, which we'll get into a little bit about that. And just you get to learn the players. So I think like once you kind of get to know the different backstories of the coaches, the players, you can really get invested in the team aspect of that. So you guys, you mentioned it a little bit. So you guys moved from a single sport individual thing into like um, a team format. You guys ended up winning the lottery and getting the first overall pick of the draft.
The Austin Gamblers, with the very first pick of the PBR Team Series, take two-time PBR World Champion,
Not many sports get to kind of experience that. Like you see it sometimes with like expansion. Every year, there's a new crop of players. You might do the draft, but you guys actually got to do like the draft of all drafts. Like put everyone in the pile and see where they land, right? So kind of talk about the preparation that took and kind of what went into that.
Yeah, again, it was that opportunity, Leon, to be a part of something brand new. And unless you were born, in the 1800s, you weren't a part of the very first MLB draft or
Yeah.
the first NBA draft, the very first NFL draft, right? So to be a part of that was something that was extremely special. As you talked about, we were extremely fortunate. We won the lottery. We actually had the worst odds of the 8 teams. So the way that you got the ping pong balls was based on what when you purchased your team in the order of who purchased the teams first.
Okay.
And I think we were last. So I think we had a 4% chance of winning. Like we might have had one ping pong ball or whatever it was. So we win, and which was wildly crazy. And to our benefit, going into the draft last year, there's a gentleman by the name of Jose Vitor Leme. And while there's some great bull riders that are out there right now, he's arguably the greatest bull rider there is right now, the greatest bull rider in the sport. And if he stays healthy, which is incredibly hard to do in this sport, if he stays healthy, he's already won 2 world championships. He's got an opportunity to win 3. There's only been 2 other guys to win 3, but he's only 26 years old. So he's got a chance if he stays healthy or relatively healthy that he could become one of the greatest bull riders of all time. And so he was available, obviously, to us in that 1-1 spot. But when you're putting a team and a franchise together, it's more than just getting the best player, because you got to think about a lot of different things. You got to think about how do you put a total team together? How is that person going to fit into that team? Are they going to be a leader? Are they going to be able to be your team captain? What kind of a role model are they going to be? Because they're going to set the tone. And as I think you found out in a little bit of research, we had a snake draft. And so for us, that was even more important. You couldn't screw that thing up, because if you do, man, you're going to be in for a long season and potentially a lot of long seasons. So for us, we did a lot of research. We spent a lot of time interviewing Jose because, again, um, the film showed you everything you needed to know. The guy's he's flat out one of the best. When we got to meet him, and really after we drafted him, probably the most surprising thing is, as good of a rider as he is, he's a better team leader. He's probably the most competitive person I've ever been around in my life. And I've been around some really competitive people in sports and in general life. The guy's an absolute champion. He's an absolute competitor. He's wildly calculated. There's nothing that he does by mistake. He doesn't, movements, how he walks, and what he says. He's bilingual. He taught himself English in a very quick and rapid pace. And while he's, good in English, he's very careful about interviews. And he gives a lot of standard answers because he just doesn't want to make himself look or sound bad, or whoever he's representing, be it his team, his own individual sponsors of the team. But his work ethic is just crazy. Like, he gets up early and he works out every day. These guys are athletes, and he does all the different things, from all the core strength and all the different workouts and stretching and all the things that you need to be a great bull rider. His nutrition is top shelf. He doesn't really drink. Goes to bed early. I mean, the craziest thing he does is he probably stays up late a few nights a week to play video games. But he's an incredible team leader. And so for us, again, we were extremely fortunate, one, to not only be a part of the very first draft ever in this league, but to have have number one of one, have the opportunity to pick Jose, and then have him help lead and put our franchise together.
I was reading a draft summary somewhere. They had mentioned that like he was walking gingerly to the stage because he had just suffered a couple broken ribs and a collapsed lung from the final just a couple days earlier. So like the injury reports got to be crazy for you guys to kind of have and see these guys go through and what they put their body through and then still get back on the bull. It's kind of nuts.
That's probably, Leon, the biggest difference for me from going from baseball to bull riding is because a lot of the business stuff, the sales, marketing, advertising, even merchandise, a lot of that, the basic mechanics of sports business are the same, but the actual sport is wildly different. And then the athletes, while baseball and a lot of the other sports have got some great athletes and there's some tough guys, there's nobody tougher than bull riders. There's just not. The grit, the determination, and really the sacrifice it takes to be a bull rider. As you mentioned, Jose, we had the draft on a Monday evening. 2 nights previous on that Saturday night in round 6 of the 7-round finals, he got stepped on by a bull, fractured 6 ribs, and had a partially collapsed lung. We didn't anticipate him getting out of the hospital till Wednesday, and all of a sudden his agent and manager is sending us pictures of him walking out of the hospital on Monday to come to the draft. So we're like, what is going on? What are you doing, man? But not only did they do that, but what we see these guys all year, guys that are wildly injured, from fractured ribs to shoulders to wrists. Another guy for Nashville, Kaiki Pacheco, had a broken foot, and he just kept riding during the finals. These guys are true warriors, and the biggest thing, the appreciation when you really have the ultimate respect for these guys, is that there's not many other professions out there outside of folks that serve in the military, first responders, police, and firemen, that when these guys go to work and every time they put their hand in a bull rope, there's a chance they could die.
Yeah.
And that's a real risk. And they're not only risking their lives for themselves, but for their families and for the organization, their teammates. And so it's just a really humbling thing. And it quite honestly, it just makes me work harder for these guys every day to make sure that I'm holding up my end of the bargain.
Awesome. So I'm going to pull up some imagery from the Gamblers. This man right here, who's the logo's based on, Wild Bill. Can you tell us a little bit about Wild Bill and his origins?
Yeah, so our owners kind of came up with this name and overall branding concept and the look and feel. And so Wild Bill, we wanted a character that kind of represented the Gamblers and the gambling spirit and kind of what it took to really come out and settle the West, right? From Texas and Kansas and Oklahoma, and just a rough territory. And again, talking about risking lives, folks that maybe would have been comfortable on the East Coast or St. Louis or wherever it was, to be able to go west and risk their lives, in some cases maybe just for themselves, but in some cases to make a better life for their families. That's kind of representative, again, of who our guys are and what they do. So looking at different characters and kind of putting something together, this logo was based off of Wild Bill Hickok. And so when you look at the logo, there's a couple different characteristics of it that are keen to Wild Bill. And so the legend of Wild Bill Hickok is that he was in Deadwood, South Dakota, playing cards, and a gentleman that potentially may have lost money from him earlier in the day or the day before came back because he was not happy and came behind him and shot him in the back of the head. And at the time, so when you look at that logo, you've got the bullet hole in the top of the cowboy hat. Mm-hmm. And then you look at the cards that are in his mouth, because the rumor is that the hand of cards that he was holding in his hand were 2 pair of black aces over black eights. And so that has forever been known as the dead man's hand, because that's what Wild Bill was holding. And so that's kind of the major theme of our logo and where that comes in. You look at the skeleton figure, the hair that kind of washes out a little bit from the side, again, kind of that gambler image, the underpin of the cowboy hat being a little bit roughed up. And then you've got, for the eyes, you've got our gambler green, our electric green eyes there. So that's kind of the inspiration for the logo, and was really the basis for a lot of our different look with our different graphics and style package.
Beautiful. Anyone who watches the show or knows me knows I love crazy neon colors. So electric green's right down my alley, volt, infrared, anything like that. So I just kind of put together some potential ideas for you to, eventually expand the merch into. I would love to see this on a hat eventually. But yeah, talking about Jose, I put together a little thing kind of representing his heritage. I don't know if a lot of people know, but a lot of the top bull riders, some of them are from Brazil. So I put together a little thing for him, kind of honoring that heritage. I got a picture of you with him in the giraffe. I thought that was kind of cool. But yeah, I don't know. Could you see him wearing something like this?
Jose doesn't wear caps a lot. He will for workouts. He's a cowboy, and so a lot of times when he's going out, he's wearing a cowboy hat. But I think he'll go out to the lake. But he and all the rest of those guys are really proud of their Brazilian heritage. And to your point, when you look for really since the inception of PBR over the last 30 years, when you look at the top 20, half the guys, usually 10 are from Brazil. Top 10, 5 are from Brazil. Two of the only 2 3-time world champions are both from Brazil. Jose, 2-time world champion from Brazil. This last year's world champion from Brazil. We were fortunate. We just took our entire team down to Brazil for training camp a few weeks ago. So half our team was already down there because that's where they live. But then we took all the guys that are here from the States down there as well. And it was a great opportunity for our riders, our American riders, our American coaches, to see our Brazilian guys' culture, where they're from, and what makes them tick. And the opportunity, I think, to go to another country where you don't know the language, where you can't read it, you can't understand it, you can't speak it. I think it gave them a better appreciation for our Brazilian riders when they come to America and have the limitations that they have just based on, again, not knowing the language. And so that was great. I think Jose and the rest of the guys that are from Brazil really appreciated us taking the time and the effort to come down there, have camp down there, and see where they're from. And so it was a really great experience. And our guys, as much as they're proud to be in and represent the gamblers in Texas and the U.S., they're definitely proud of their Brazilian heritage. So I can definitely see 1 or 2 of the guys wearing a hat like that.
Perfect. Another one of the stars of the show that I found was actually the steal of the draft. He actually wasn't drafted. You guys picked him up in the free agent portion of the draft. Right there. Yeah. Right Mr. There. Blue. Yeah, Blue. Yeah. Tell me about Ezekiel.
Zeke's the man. Zeke's a really interesting guy. He, as you mentioned, going into the draft last year on, most of the draft boards, he was a top 40 rider. He was ranked number 35 in the world coming out of that World Finals. As we mentioned, I think we mentioned, it was a 5-round draft. There was 8 teams. So 40 guys were selected, and then we went right into free agency after that. And so it was interesting because nobody selected Zeke. And we were one of those teams that didn't. And the reason wasn't because of his riding. I think everybody knows that Zeke's wildly athletic and has a huge amount of potential. But one of the issues and really kind of the reputation that was out there is that Zeke was more concerned about Zeke, but really more of Zeke's social personality and kind of what was out there and promotion. And so we had some long conversations, and I think it was captured a little bit in the ride in the docuseries that you saw. That after we selected Jose, we brought him down to kind of the pit, and we started talking and said, "Listen, what do you think?" And Jose, with you being a leader, if we bring him on board, is that somebody that you think you can take under your wing and kind of help guide? And he's like, "Absolutely." And so we made some quick calls, and really the issue was Ezekiel a reality star that wanted to become a bull rider, or was he a bull rider that wanted to increase his social media presence? And what we found out, it was the latter. And so we had a couple long conversations with him. G-Man did, I did, said, listen, man, we don't want to take any of that away from you. We just want to help you focus in on bull riding, because at the end of the day, if you become a great bull rider, you become a world champion, you don't even need to try to do any social media because it's going to follow you. And so it was a great opportunity for us. It was a great opportunity for him, and it really worked out. He ended up becoming a leader of the team. He had a hot streak for us. We ended up putting him in the gunner position. So each night, so just from a big picture, each team has 12 riders on their roster. We typically travel with 7 to each event, and then each night we have a game, and there's 5 riders. So let's just say it's a 3-night event. On Friday when we play Phoenix, on Saturday we play Kansas City, on Sunday we play Oklahoma City. But each night it's our 5 riders versus their 5 riders. The only way you get a score is if you stay on 8 seconds, take the total number of our 8-second rides and the scores with those against the other team, and then you either win, lose, or draw. And then you have a record at the end of the season. So last year in our 28-game regular season, we were 16-12. But Zeke, he was our gunner. He was our leadoff rider and really set the tone for us and went on a hot streak. Jose got hurt in the middle of the year, so he took on even a little bit more of a leadership role. But it was just really fun to watch him come into his own and become, what we all hoped he could be. And so he's also kind of a local kid. He's from Rockdale, Texas originally, which is about an hour from Austin, which also was great. He's one of the only African-American riders on the tour. So that's another, piece of Ezekiel's kind of total puzzle of a lot of the different things that he is. But he's just a great representative for us. He was one of the main guys featured on the ride along with Jose. And I think he's a great representative for not only for the gamblers, but for PBR in general. And, he's definitely a style guy. So I think if we were to come up with a hat design for him, I know he's going to be wearing it.
Yeah. I think one of the first things that I noticed was anytime like the team needed a pick me up, he was almost like the first one to speak up and kind of, it was cool to see his evolution, kind of how he was portrayed at first. Like you mentioned, is he all about the cloud, and is he, trying to just be famous, and then really kind of evolve and rise up to that leadership role. So I tried to capture some of his, I guess more so when he's like an individual rider. He's always wearing blue, so I had to try to keep that flash of a lot of metallics, metallic gold, metallic copper, stuff like that, but then still keep the Austin Gamblers logos and stuff like that. So that's just me from far trying to think about what he would like possibly, but yeah, just keep it really, really flashy, but then at the same time stay true to that blue moniker.
No, I think that's sharp, and I mean, to your point, that's his uniform during the individual season. That's the name that he goes by, and so I think he crushed that one.
Thank you. All right, and then what's a team without the coach, right? So we're gonna move on.
We got a good one too.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about this man here.
Michael Gaffney saved his best for the PBR.
G-Man. So Michael Gaffney, he's one of the 20 founders of the PBR, and I'll kind of tell a real quick side story here. So for a lot of folks that don't know, so bull riding has obviously been around for a couple hundred years. It was one of the 7 or 8 disciplines of rodeo, which is and it's all the different events from it's barrel racing and steer wrestling, calf roping, saddle bronc, bareback, and bull riding. And so it had always been a part of that. Well, the deal with rodeo and specifically bull riding is that these guys would travel from city to city all year. They would have to pay their own gas, their own hotel, their own food, would have to pay entry fees to get into an event, and the only way they could get any money back is by winning. And so a lot of times, even when they did win, it would basically break even for all the costs to get there. And so, it was really a tough financial model for them. And I think G-Man, I want to say the year was probably 1991. He went to the NFR, which is the National Finals Rodeo, which is kind of the World Series of the Super Bowl of rodeo. And there's 10 rounds, and I want to say he was 9 for 9. And if he rode his 10th bull, he'd become a handful of bull riders that rode all 10 bulls in the finals. It was on a bull that he'd ridden before, and unfortunately just kind of tripped up and didn't. But still, won the NFR, won the World Finals, was the greatest bull rider in the world that year, and I think he got a $50,000 check for that. But he was $40,000 in debt going into the weekend just from all of his bull riding expenses.
Man.
So he was the best bull rider in the world, but yet all he had to show for it was $10,000. So he and a lot of the other really great bull riders they went to some of the leadership or the brass of the PRCA, as I know it, and said, listen, with all due respect to the other disciplines of rodeo, we say bull riding for last. If you ever go to the rodeo, bull riding is always last. So we're kind of the main performance. We risk our lives. We just feel like we should be compensated more. And I think the PRCA said, with all due respect, no, we're going to pay everybody the same. So these guys, there was 20 of them. They got together, 20 of the best bull riders in the world, and said, listen, we need to figure out a different way to do this. We need to figure out a way to get compensated more for the risk that we're doing, putting out there. And so they each put $1,000 in, hired a consultant. This consultant went out, got an hour of airtime on NBC, went out and got, I believe, Ford Trucks and Bud Light to sponsor that, put an hour of professional bull riding and these 20 great riders on 20 of the best bulls in the world, and the rest is history. And
That's
so
crazy.
since then, it's been the greatest bull riders in the world on the greatest bulls. All it is bull riding, nothing else. And it's 2 hours with fireworks, pyro, smoke, music, the whole thing. And so G-Man, long story short, was one of those 20 guys that went to that hotel room in Scottsdale and pitched in $1,000. And again, risked everything to start this new venture. He ultimately became PBR world champion in 1997, was inducted into the PBR Ring of Honor, I want to say in 2005. Was a TV consultant and commentator for a few years, had stepped away from the sport for a little bit while he and his wife raising their son, his son Merrick, who's now I think 14, hot shot soccer player. Well, during COVID, they were living in New Mexico. The state pretty much shut down. They knew they needed to continue to have him play and compete. So they looked around in the different areas. Texas was still kind of open and kids are still playing soccer. So they moved to Austin, which has become a hotbed of soccer with the new MLS team that's been here the last couple of years. And so he got injected into the soccer community here and was here and just happened to be living here when the team series got launched. Our ownership group reached out to PBR and said, hey, if we're going to get a coach, who would you recommend? And they said, well, you've actually got a guy that just moved to Austin. He's one of the founders and would be a great guy to run your team. And so reached out to G-Man and he said yes. And I couldn't be any happier because he's been a great friend. He's been a great mentor. He's taught me a lot about the sport. Almost everything I've learned in the last 14 months is from him. Extremely patient, but he is one of the nicest guys in the world. He's a cowboy's cowboy. He's not flashy. He's the opposite of Zeke. He's old school, but just a great guy. And I think a great representative of the PBR and the gamblers, and excited to see what you put together for him.
All right. So basically, I tried to hook one of the accolades that you mentioned, so the Ring of Honor. So I took different aspects of the gold, and actually, like y'all's trophy at the end of the year is a big old belt buckle. So I had to go with the Wild Bill crest because it reminded me of just those that Texas style belt buckle, all blinged out for the ring. I noticed during the ride he was always wearing like almost a wheat color cowboy hat, so I kind of pulled that color on and threw it on, and I put the PBR logo on the side to represent his previous accomplishments there. So this is what I put together for Mr. G-Man.
No, I mean, I think that's a great characterization of him. I think using our shield logo, I think it fits in there really well. Obviously, the PBR and what he's meant to that organization, having that on the side, I think is great. As you mentioned, that white color, the kind of symbolic of the straw hat that he wears a lot. And I think he crushed that one.
Thank you.
I know his son Merrick would absolutely wear that thing.
Awesome. So we got to talk to the boss and get that put into production soon. And then I kind of put together some potential theme nights for you to kind of bring over from the minor league kind of area, with minor league baseball doing a lot of different theme nights and crossovers. So you had mentioned on our email thread that potentially an Expos night could work well.
Yeah, so we I actually grabbed a few of my hats.
Okay.
Which I'm turn. I grabbed a few of my hats before I came here today, and the one I couldn't find is. So I had a brief, like I said, I had a very brief minor league career. I played in the Pioneer League. I played for the Butte Copper Kings, which was kind of a cool logo here. Copper Kings logo.
Yeah, we call it the Burger King.
the Burger King. And then I played for the Perth Heat, which is in the Western Australian Baseball League. And it was an Expos hat, and I don't have no idea where I put it. And just was running a little bit late this morning, but I always kind of loved that Expos look as a kid growing up. I was a huge Gary Carter, Tim Raines, Andre Dawson fan. And so I thought I love that kind of tri-panel look. And then I think with our black, electric green and white, I think that there's some cool stuff that you can do there too. But cool. Yeah, from an Expos look or from a Texas look, I think that's super solid. But
yeah, like the colors match up perfectly with the Texas state flag. But yeah, so that was the Expos, and then we did a little America's football team kind of hook here. I know that's not your home team to cheer for, but I think you put it aside to appease the locals.
It would. So obviously, we talked about. I think we've talked about this before off camera a little bit, but one of the things that we're trying to do is we're trying to build a brand, right? And so, regardless if you like these teams or not, when you think about baseball, it's the Yankees. When you think about football, it's the Cowboys. And basketball, I mean, it could be the Lakers, it could be the Sixers, it could be the Celtics, but it's usually the Lakers. They're the biggest brands. They're the ones that are the most well-known around the world. I mean, we were just in Brazil, and walking out in the Sao Paulo airport, they had a little New Era stand, but all they had were Yankee hats. And so I was talking to somebody because in the docu-series, I think you hear that one of the guys for the other teams is like, yeah, they're the Yankees and yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, yeah, that's what we want to be. If that's what you think, then heck yeah. And so obviously here in Texas, but really a lot of sports fans, when you think about football, it's the Cowboys. They're obviously known as America's team. We're here right in the middle of Texas. My wife and my wife's family are diehard Cowboys fans, which makes it a little bit difficult for me in the fall and winter because I'm an Eagles fan. But no, it's an important and big brand in sports. Obviously here in Texas, there's a tie-in between PBR and the Cowboys moving forward. As the last 2 days of the World Finals next year are going to be at AT&T Stadium, the home of the Cowboys. So I think having something there with the blue and the silver would definitely be something cool that a lot of Texas and Cowboy fans would appreciate.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
And I love that. And I love how that the white on that gambler's poker chip kind of pops on there too.
Yeah, it almost reminds me of like that. That chip is something that you guys always wore on the helmets too. So that kind of made me think of like trying to design this, thinking what the helmet looked like and stuff like that. Yeah. I have to ask you though, not all the riders wear the helmet. Like what's the rule behind that? Because some guys would just rock hats.
Yeah. So the rule, and a lot of people have that question, and why some guys don't. It's basically a rule is that if you were born before 1994 and you were grandfathered in, and if you want to wear a cowboy hat and not wear a helmet, you don't have to. If you were born after 1994, you have to wear the hat. All riders do have to wear a vest. They ride the protective vest, which is in the year that I've been involved in this, is I've watched to save numerous guys' lives. But yeah, so and it's interesting because it's we've got I think 2 guys on our team that don't wear the helmet, and it's nerve-wracking. It's already scary enough with them wearing helmets, but with them not wearing helmets, it's even scarier. So, but that's probably a thing, with those guys. Now they're in their early 30s. I would expect that within probably 5 years, you're going to be hard pressed to see anybody in the PBR without a helmet.
Yeah. It's kind of similar to like the NHL rule. We saw like Guy Lafleur forever. I think about some of the even before that, even the goalies that didn't want to wear the mask, but then eventually they hit a date. After, too bad. Before, okay, you're used to it. We won't make a change.
Yeah, it's like anything else with other sports and once you inject it into the youth leagues, and that's what you wear when you start, you don't know any different.
That's the rule.
But
Yeah.
yeah, and it's I talked to G-Man because late in his career he had contemplated it, and he put a helmet on once, and he just said it felt so weird. It blocked his vision. It made his head feel heavy. He's like, for me, I just felt it was more unsafe because I couldn't ride as well, and so you get it.
Yeah. All right. And then for you, this one probably hurts a little bit. Being a Nebraska guy, and then eventually going to TCU and
Creighton. Again, I know where I'm at in the same manner that I'm going to support the Cowboys because it's the state that I'm in, and there's a lot of fans. I know where my bread is buttered as well with the UT Longhorns. I'm in Austin, so yes, and we've got a great relationship with the folks there, with the entire athletic department. We did a deal with Quinn Ewers last year, and I think the entire football team's going to come over for the Friday night event this year. And then our host venue is the Moody Center, which is on the UT campus. So now I say a lot of it in jest. When I was younger, obviously growing up in Nebraska and then playing at TCU, I was probably a little bit more vocal. But now I'm supportive. I mean, I live 10 blocks from campus, so.
Perfect. And then one of the theme nights that you had mentioned to me earlier involved the Navy, right? The Navy.
Yeah, sorry. So we had a good relationship with America's Navy and also the SEAL community. Mm-hmm. There's a large number of retired SEALs that live in the Austin area. And, with us getting into a sport that had been primarily or really all individual for a couple hundred years, one of the things that was really, we knew we had to concentrate on is how we're going to build team culture, team identity. And, we just felt like there was nobody better than the military and specifically the Navy and really the SEALs. So we had a great opportunity to meet some local folks. We had the opportunity to go to Coronado in San Diego and go to SEAL Beach and meet with their folks there. And so really did a great job of helping our team create our team identity, our team culture, and kind of that shift from just being an individual to being a teammate and someone that was accountable to other folks. And so, yeah, I think that military thing is very cool too.
All right. And then one of the last ones I put together for you to check out is this one. So not sure if you're too familiar with like the hook aspect of hat collectors and putting together hats, but then this was kind of a mishmash of all things. So the Jays hosted the 1991 All-Star Game patch. That's when you played for Creighton and the Blue Jays there. I have a little still shot of your team there. I think you guys had recently celebrated the 30-year anniversary of that team. So congratulations on that. I'm going to have to ask you off camera which one you are in that picture so we can kind of zoom in. But this is the Toronto Blue Jays old retro logo with the 1991 All-Star Game patch in the Austin Gamblers colors. So this is a little throwback to your playing days.
There's a lot going on in that whole story, dude. I love it. I love it. That's correct. So the Jays hosted the 91 All-Star Game.
Yes, sir.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, we almost missed it because Jays back-to-back winners of 92, 93. I almost wanted to use the World Series logo on it, but the year didn't match up. So I went with the 1991.
Maybe that's why they didn't give us a hard time about using their exact logo, because they were concentrating on hosting the All-Star Game.
Yeah. And putting together the World Series team. So hopefully they're not watching now, but whatever. Statute of limitations is over. Like you said, Creighton probably didn't even make that much money selling the merch back then. But yeah, this is just kind of a throwback. This is the JJ, I call it. So a little electric green for you, and something hopefully we can put together for you and kind of wear to pay homage to that team and the memorable stuff that you guys did.
Super cool, man. I love it.
All right, and then I have one more, last one. I kind of put together, you had mentioned you're a big Philly sports guy, so this one took a little bit of research. I don't know if you were aware, but back in the 40s, the Phillies had some sort of nickname contest where the fans could pick a nickname for the team, and then for 1 year, the Philadelphia Phillies became the Philadelphia Blue Jays. So I thought that was a cool hook with you
That's
being
wild, man.
with you being a Philadelphia sports guy. So this one is kind of the JJ2, if you may. So
That is
Blue
solid.
Jays colors with the Phillies. So that Blue Jay logo was their actual logo. So the Blue Jay over the word Phillies, and then a little dugout shot. I tried to pull some of the blues that Creighton uses, along with some of the blues that the Blue Jays use. So that's kind of the grand finale. But the JJ2.
You went deep in that one, man. That's awesome. That is awesome.
Yeah. I try, with the different storytelling aspects. I think once people kind of connect to a product and know why you made it and kind of get an idea of the process and what you did to tell the story, I think people connect to it more. So this one is going to be potentially deeply personal to you with the Philadelphia ties and obviously the Blue Jays. But this was kind of my tribute to your playing days and kind of who you are. So everything. I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to kind of join me in the lab. This was a little bit of a different experience, but hopefully we could see some of these things made in the future.
No, it's awesome. It's funny because even since our first conversation, then while we've been on today, I've got all these, as you've been showing stuff, I've got all these new ideas that have been coming into my head. And so it's kind of endless, man. It's amazing. And it's so cool, the freedom that you have. And then with your ability to create and kind of what that leads to. So, man, love what you're doing. I'm a new fan. I'm going to be following the show, and hopefully folks can follow us, become Gambler fans, and if you haven't done it yet, check out the ride on Prime Video. It's I think, Leon, as you said, it's just a great way to learn about the PBR, the team series, and really who these riders are. It's I tell people it's like Hard Knocks. In the States, was kind of that first reality TV that really gave people a look behind the lens and kind of what was going on and a peek behind the curtain. And I think if you think about today, probably the epitome of that is Drive to Survive and what that meant for F1. And in both those instances, it was getting to the athletes and taking their helmets off and getting to know them and hear their stories. And with the ride, that's exactly what happens, is that you get the guys off the bulls, away from the arena, helmets off, and you get to find out who they are and more about them and their families. And we've got husbands and fathers and single dads, and all of them go through, although all of our lives are different, and while their job is to ride a 2,000-pound bull, outside of that, they're just like us, and they have the same issues and trials and tribulations that we all do in life.
Yeah. One show I kind of related to, and it's almost funny. It's like aspects of Hard Knocks, and then the F1 show, and then the Ultimate Fighter, all in one. So
exactly right.
It's a wild ride, pun intended. Like you said, I hope everyone has a chance to check it out. If you have Amazon Prime, season 1 is out right now. If you guys don't know the results, don't spoil it for yourself. Watch it from beginning to end, because it's a fun one. Thank you again for taking the time to kind of spend with me in the lab, and wish you guys nothing but the best for your upcoming season. Thank you so much, JJ.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it, brother.
All right. And there you have it. JJ's episode is a wrap. I just want to take some time out to thank JJ for his time. He came on and was very gracious with his time and let me kind of go through some of the different designs and mock-ups for him that I thought kind of hooked his story and his past. But hopefully we get some of those made in the future and available to you guys for the ability to purchase. And I would like to thank again sponsor of the episode, Pro Image Sports Colorado. Make sure you guys are following them for future release information. And until next time, I'm out. Peace.
Brought to you by VFTV.